Good evening. Welcome to tonight's webinar. This is a Success Matters webinar, and tonight I'm Claire Boyles. I'm always Claire Boyles, but tonight I am as well. And I'm from Success Matters. And I'm interviewing Richard Lalchan, who is a clarity coach. Hi, Richard.
Hello. Hi, Claire. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Can't complain.
Good. So tonight you're going to be helping us understand how we can move from overwhelm into clarity.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. It's a huge problem in a society, really, generally. And if I had one word that most of my coaching clients would say is their challenge, it's overwhelm. It's just there's so many things bombarded at them, sort of left, right, and centre. So how do you sort of work things out? How do you know what's right for you? How do you sift through everything to know what are the next steps you need to take? So it's all those kind of things which we can look at.
Yeah, I tend to go through a cycle where I feel overwhelmed, and then I kind of stop doing the unnecessary stuff, give myself breathing space, sort it through it, and then I'm focused and I'm productive again. But then the cycle comes around again and I end up getting overwhelmed again. So you're going to help us avoid getting to that overwhelmed state.
Yes, I mean, you've said a couple of the sort of key things there in terms of you get to a stage where you then focus again and prioritize. And one of the biggest reasons why we get overwhelmed is because we don't necessarily have clarity on what we're doing and on our vision.
Right.
And so the more we know that, and this wonderful tool that we use called the clarity wheel, which helps us, set up your key priority for each sort of area that you choose. Could be different aspects of your business and aspects of your life, because obviously we're holistic people. Everything is connected.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah.
I think certainly when I was an employee, I was able to compartmentalize my life much more effectively. But when you are working and it's your own business, it's so intricately involved with you and who you are and your personality. It's much harder to have personal boundaries around your work.
Yeah, and even more with technology the way it is as well. So there's been lots of research that done almost looks at how our brains are changing, how we think differently because of our use of technology. So just a couple of examples where, say, our motivation in the past, that would have been much more sort of long term, this kind of sense of motivation and reward.
Right. Yes.
Take, for example, sending and receiving letters. Whereas now we've got
initially,
WhatsApp messages. So our brain is now having to cope with that immediate cycles, and then of course you then add in social media and the likes and the immediate, the dopamine hit that we want when you click that like. It's changing the whole way that we are thinking. So we need to be able to put in structures and things to be able to cope with that.
Definitely. So it's funny because as we were preparing for tonight's webinar, I closed down my browsers and my multiple tabs and my WhatsApp and my Messenger so that I wouldn't be interrupted. But before I managed to do that, I got several messages on WhatsApp. And when I had those, I was involved with the conversation with you about preparing for this webinar. So I made a decision not to reply to them. However, that didn't stop me feeling stressed and feeling guilty, the fact that I hadn't responded to people immediately. There's 3 people I haven't replied to, and they're waiting for me because of the WhatsApp message. And
I can tell you exactly why that happens. That's called, so we have, and I interviewed a guy called Andrew Hall from Compare the Market for a podcast I did a couple of years ago. And he's done a lot of research within mental energy and decision fatigue.
Right.
And it's a fascinating thing. So exactly what you've described there in terms of you get the notifications up and then you get that kind of like anxiety because you need to respond. So that comes back to what we talked about before in terms of the motivation and reward. Now we're working on these quick cycles. So the expectation is there. But also we are like batteries. So every decision that we make drains us of energy. So you think about all the decisions you make just in a day,
Right.
from starting from to get out of bed. You've got
Yeah.
some people have their phones by their bed, which is not a good thing. So it's like, how do you pick that up? If you pick it up, what do you look at? Are you looking at email? So all of these things we're making decisions to do it, whether we recognize it or not, we are. And so every time you make a decision like that, our energy is being depleted. And
so is that, can I ask you, sorry, I'm interrupting.
No,
I'm really fascinated by what you're saying, and I'm thinking about what that means for me, and I'm sharing because our viewers may help them make sense of what you're saying as well. So for me, I'm one of those people that I do pick up my phone, and I'm on social media, and social media is a way that I relax. But you're saying that uses energy because you're making decisions. So is that why when I need to rest, I turn on Star Trek Enterprise, I put on Netflix, and then I don't have to do anything. All I'm doing is laying there. I might actually play a game on my phone at the same time, but I've shut off. That's I'm not doing anything time. So is that because I don't need to make decisions in that, or do you think is that to do with that?
Yes, so that's part. So you're not making decisions, but even if you're obviously playing a game, then you are still making decisions, and then that brings in the whole concept of multitasking. So if you're looking at Star Trek and playing a game at the same time, then
I think they're pretty mindless decisions.
Yes,
the game's low taxing. It's not very taxing.
But either way, however it's still you're having to make decisions.
Right.
So however those decisions. So one tip really is actually about pre-making decisions.
Okay.
So the famous classic one is clothes. What are you going to wear? Yeah. So Steve Jobs was famous for that. So he always wore the turtlenecks and jeans. People complained about that, but he had more important things to make
a decision
his mental energy on than deciding what to wear. So that's right for him. That might not be right for someone else. So you've got to work out what's right for you.
Well, I never have to choose what colour to wear because I always know what colour I'm wearing.
And it's not so some of these things we don't always necessarily make a conscious decision about it. But then looking back at that, we can see, well, actually, that saves me a lot of time. So that's quite a key thing. So the more decisions you can pre-make, the better, or of course avoid. So for me, in terms of social media, as you well know, I don't use Facebook, I don't use Twitter, and
or Instagram.
The only one I use is LinkedIn, and so that means I avoid having to make any of those decisions. So my mental energy is not taken up with looking at the notifications on all these different apps. And that's another bit of advice I would say as well, is when it comes to technology, it's about us trying to be in control of it, not it being in control of us. So one of the first things I do with my phone is switch off all notifications. So I don't have any notifications on.
Have you noticed how tricky it is to actually stop some apps from pushing notifications through? So that's a tip I use as well. And some apps, it can be very, very hard to turn off those push notifications.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you got an example of one?
Oh gosh, it's been ages since. So I mean, Facebook is a brilliant example to turn off those push notifications. The first time I did that was really difficult to find that setting of how to do it.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure about like Android and things like that, but with iPhone, you do have a separate notifications thing which you can switch them
all
off.
off
So
at once.
It is easier. I don't know about
also
all off at once, but certainly the
You can
individual apps, you
choose
can
which
switch them off.
ones, right? Have you noticed on browsing websites that now there are a lot of websites that are asking you, can it give you notifications now?
Oh, yeah.
And it's websites I've never visited before, and it's like, oh, this website wants to give you notifications, and I'm like, no way. And I wonder how many people just click yes, and then they're bombarded.
So another tip for that actually is, and I can't remember where I saw this, so I'd love to credit the person who I found this from, but they said about setting up different browsers for different things.
Yes.
So for example, Google Chrome, for me, that's like the worst one in the sense of it takes all of your information because that's what Google wants.
Yes.
So I have a separate browser. I have Firefox, which has got the highest security settings, as in I make sure I set it to the highest security settings, and I use that for browsing anything where I don't need to log in.
Right.
So just general sites that I might be researching a particular subject, and I don't want Google to, find out and then show me ads to do with that subject.
Yeah.
Then
at least you don't have to deal with the Facebook ads being bombarded to you.
Oh,
as well.
Yeah. I mean, I also have ad blockers as well. Right. So I generally don't really see much.
So is this one of the techniques that you would help people implement, is besides using different tools to minimize the amount of messages we're being bombarded, but do you have like specific times where you do different types of tasks, or is that a good thing or a bad thing? Or
Yes, no, that is a very good thing. So with some of my clients, I would actually go through and work out a weekly diary calendar of when certain activities are best, and we're all different. So we all work at different rhythms. So someone might be better, in the morning or whatever, and others might be better in the evening. Although I don't personally completely believe in the morning and evening thing. But anyway, that's an aside. But
I think, well, we do have rhythms, don't we? There's a biological rhythms, and I think people can switch from nighttime to morning, but when you're in that rhythm, people tend to identify, this is who I am, and think it's a permanent thing.
Yeah. It's like the whole sort of labeling, isn't it? We just like to label and then put in that box. But with that, you essentially, if let's say you are better in the mornings, then I would say it's better to do your sort of creative work, whatever that is for you, things that uses more of your brain power, your mental energy. Get that done then, and then things like email, do that later. So another thing that I would say is not to have your email open all the time. So I know a lot of people just have it constantly open, so you've got the notifications popping up. It's like, again, that's letting the tech be in control of you. So if you just open your email, so I only have my email program open when I'm going to specifically look at it. So
I'm not as good as you, but I don't have it open all of the time. So I'll have it open during my working day, but when, and I think this is really important for business owners, because it's their own business, they tend to leave the emails open in the evenings and the weekends. I don't do that. If you email me on a Sunday, you will not get a response, because I don't look at my emails on a Sunday. And I don't look, after we finish this is kind of a bit worky. But I won't be looking at emails tonight. I won't be looking at them until tomorrow. Yeah.
And that's so that's another interesting thing in terms of setting expectations. So when I say this to people about looking at email at particular times, they kind of like look like a rabbit in headlights. How can I do that? I'm running my own business. I need to be in touch all the time. Well, no, you don't. You're a human being, and you've got other things outside of your main work. So it's about setting expectations. So another good tip that I use. So I use an email software called Polymail.
Okay.
Now, I don't know whether that is available for PC. Can't remember. It's Mac-based. But there are other things. So Google Gmail has this feature as well now. Right. It didn't when Polymail came out. So it's about setting expectations. So I can just essentially do a send later. So if
we can do that in Outlook on
Yeah,
PC, on Microsoft as well. Yeah.
Outlook, you've been able to do that for a while, a long while.
Yeah.
That's been on, but it's such a good tool because you're then essentially making sure emails are going out in a specific time. So it could be 8:30 to 5:30 or whatever it is for
Yeah.
you. And so, because I used to years ago, I might be up at 1 o'clock in the morning and send emails, and then clients get the email at 1 o'clock, and then the next day they're like, "Whoa, you were up at that time doing our
Yeah.
work." And
Yeah.
so it sets bad expectations.
I've worked with a few clients where, because they might be running evening events, they feel that it's okay to send emails at that time. And I'm like, no, set it so that it goes out at 8:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
because otherwise, yeah. And for me, because I social media is a very big aspect of what I do, and I support business owners on social media. Don't ever send me a Facebook message after 8 p.m. at night, because I consider that rude. That's not my working time. That's Facebook Messenger. It's coming straight through onto my phone. So if I'm in bed, it comes through, pops up until, unless I've got it on silent. But it's like, no, just don't do that to people. I wouldn't even send my friends Facebook messages at that time of night, or WhatsApp messages, or even texts. It's like, it can wait until the morning. It's not life or death.
So there's a way around that, and this is back to, again, you being in control of your tech rather than it. So this is one thing that I've started to do now with my phone at night. I switch it off for a start.
Yeah.
So pretty much around 9:30, my phone will be switched off, and I leave it in the kitchen.
Right.
So
yeah.
So I've done that for years in terms of leaving it in the kitchen. But a friend of mine just said, about, why don't you just switch your phone off? I know, I never even dawned on me that I should do that, because I just leave it charging overnight. So now I switch it off. So again, it's the less barriers, more barriers to using it. So you want to create more barriers as possible. So because that's, there's so many issues with like sleep and linking to anxiety and depression and stuff like that, which come through the way we are using our phones and technology. And we need to get a grip on it. We need to take control of it.
They are our tools, not the other way around.
Exactly. So I'd like to kind of like give a challenge to people, whatever is the just, if you do take your phone to and have that in bed with you, or by your bed, challenge you just for a week. Don't put it in the kitchen or in another room completely. Turn it off as well, and just see how you get on with that.
I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that. I will consider that after this webinar is finished. I will consider how I feel about that and why I feel so anxious about that idea. It's quite crazy. There is another aspect to it though. For me, I live on my own, so that is my only contact with the outside world. So then if I turn my phone off, I'd be cut off. There's no landline.
Yeah, and a lot of people obviously are like that. Well, technically we do have a landline in the house, but I do feel like that as well. But the benefits for me far outweigh the negatives. Right. So if I needed to make a phone call, okay, I have to switch my phone on, but I can still do it.
Yes, but what if somebody's trying to contact you in an emergency? Then they can't get you.
No, but then it's like, if you're somewhere where there's no signal and someone tries, there's always.
We used to be able to cope just fine, didn't we?
Exactly. And it's that kind of thing. It's just understanding that there are some times when it's okay and good to be out of contact. Why should anyone be in contact with us 24/7 or have that expectation? They shouldn't. Okay,
so let's recap. So I'm going to rewind a little bit. So one of the reasons why we did this webinar tonight is to give people a little bit of a taster, because you're one of our speakers at the Success Matters event next week, aren't you?
Yeah. So with that, so the subject is from overwhelm to clarity, and we're looking at a variety of things, and I do go through some of the tips that I've mentioned, but there's a lot more things that we cover, and really it's going to be a great space to just almost like take a step back and look at what is the things that are causing us overwhelm.
Yes.
What are the things we can do about it? How do we get back control? How do we take back control? So we're not, just seeing all these emails pop up and getting anxious and frustrated, and we're just not being able to deal with them. In fact, I saw someone who I was working with last week looked at her email on, this was on her MacBook. She had 28,000 emails. So that notification that comes up in red,
right.
And that's like, that would be a nightmare for me. So I can tell you I've got about 6 emails.
Just looking at my phone. I wonder how many, how do you see how many emails are in your inbox in Gmail?
Not sure.
No, so Gmail's one of my ones where I get newsletters and stuff in, so it's not my high priority inbox, but I don't delete stuff out of that. I just don't delete it. So I've got thousands in that as well.
Yeah, well, that's so another tip. Again, there are other apps that do this within Gmail, but with Polymail, essentially the idea is to get inbox 0. Yeah, right. So you've got nothing in your inbox, and as soon as you reply to a message, it'll automatically archive that, so it disappears from your inbox. But also, if let's say someone sent you an information about a particular event which is happening in 2 weeks' time, you don't necessarily need to respond to that immediately. So you just you can just tap it and say, appear in my inbox next week.
Right.
So again, you're reducing the amount of things you have to deal with at that point.
Yeah.
So it's more realistic to then try and get to inbox 0. So it's things like that as well that we'll be covering, but also looking at how our brains are changing, kind of what I mentioned before, in terms of our sense of motivation and reward, how focusing and our lack of ability to focus, how that's changing now. The concept of memory and understanding, that's all changing now because of all the different lifestyle and technology that we have, and just how we learn, and then our actions and goals, how that is changing. Whereas before there was much more of a sense of following through with actions, whereas now, because we've just got an unending amount of options and things like that, then we get into this analysis paralysis.
Well, even the choices that we have can be overwhelming. If you aren't clear on exactly what your own personal and business priorities are. Yeah,
and that really comes back to having that clarity of vision to start with, because that can really help you then focus more. I'll give one quick story. I don't know whether people have read the book, Will It Make the Boat Go Faster?
Okay.
Fantastic book. So this was, it's written by, I can't remember which one, but one of the rowers, the team that won the 2012 Olympics. And I heard her she was giving this talk at this event I was at. And one of the things she said was, that whole vision of will it make the boat go faster, that was her filter through that time, which she did everything. So for example, if her friends phoned her up and said, do you want to come out to the pub? Her thing was, just to herself, will it make the boat go faster? Yeah, right. Because that was the whole goal with the Olympics, obviously.
So that's really fascinating, because I work with some clients who refuse to take time off. And if I use that analogy, they'd be able to understand if they took 2 hours off. Now, not going out to the pub getting drunk, that's different. But if they took 2 hours off, when they came back to work, they would be more productive, more effective because they'd had the rest. So that would make the boat go faster.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that also ties into that concept of, I guess we think we're indispensable. So we've got that kind of idea as well. And so, things like holidays, it's like, well, what's going to happen? How's things going to run if I'm not around? But actually, just exactly what you've said. It's that whole taking that step back and realizing, relaxing, that sense of a good work-life balance. All of that is helping your business to grow. Without that, you'll only be able to get to a certain stage before
you burn out and your business dies.
Yeah,
really, that's a real. Another little small anecdote to share. So, I think nearly 10 years ago now, I went to Thailand. I was working with a client actually in Thailand. I was coaching them on their business, and before I started the work, I said I was having 2 weeks off, and I was having 2 weeks off social media, off everything. I was just having 2 weeks just to rest, just to ground myself. It was on a tropical island in Thailand. It was beautiful. I just wanted to relax, get regrounded, have some time off before I started work. And when I came back onto Twitter, I had people telling me that I'd been socially irresponsible because I wasn't online, and they were worried about me and where I'd been because I hadn't been tweeting, because normally I tweet all the time. And it was like, but I did say, if you look at my last tweet, it says I'm going offline for 2 weeks. And that's part of why we feel anxious as business owners, because customers or potential customers feel they have this right over us to access us.
And part of why they have that is because we allow them to have that.
Because we haven't set the healthy boundaries.
Exactly. It still comes back to, are we in control, or are we letting the situations control us? There's a great saying by Greg McKeown, who wrote the book The Essentialism, the Disciplined Pursuit of Less. And he says, if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will.
Yeah.
And that's the case, so it's about actually you setting the boundaries, setting those expectations, and then you can't control other people, and that's fine. We should try and control other people. So the way people respond to you is you don't have control over that. So they could be angry with you for not being available, but that's fine, because it's about knowing what is the right thing long term for you. So you will upset people,
definitely,
but it's a price worth paying.
But the people that are upset are the people that don't respect your boundaries. So it's probably okay if they don't hang around. What's the Dr. Seuss phrase? The people that matter don't mind, and the people that mind don't matter. No, it's the other way around.
Yes, yeah. No, I know what you meant. Yeah. No, that's good.
The people that matter don't mind, and the people that mind don't matter.
Yeah. And the only thing I'd add to that is that sometimes it takes people time
to adjust.
To adjust.
Yeah.
And so some people might immediately mind, but actually over time they'll understand.
Definitely.
Which is another thing, and this is something I struggle with as well. It's being consistent, because once you set up those boundaries, it's actually making sure you're enforcing them.
Right.
So, because otherwise you then go back to that sense of people can access you anytime they like.
Definitely. We teach people what is the appropriate way to behave towards us from our own behavior. And if you're not consistent, then they just get confused. And that doesn't help you, doesn't help them, and it doesn't help any type of relationship, whether it be personal or business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, right. So I think that I'm enjoying talking to you about this because we both love this topics and about maximizing our performance and productivity and effectiveness as human beings. But we don't have all night to talk. And you are going to be at the Success Matters event on the 4th of September. So if anybody's near or around St Albans, it's certainly worth coming along to. If they haven't been to the event before, they can book the free first time ticket. And if they have been to the event, join our free, sorry, Rich, Facebook group. And you can get the reduced rate ticket. So it's normally £20, but when you join the group, it's only £10.
And then should we mention?
Yeah.
So the talk that I'm giving on the 4th is really a taster for a 3-hour workshop that we're doing on the 12th of September. So again, if you're in or around St Albans, come along to that. Yeah. So what we'll be doing is going in far more depth about things, but it's an interactive workshop. So you get the opportunity to really take that step back, look at your priorities. It's clear space to think about your business direction, what's important in your life, look at your priority for each areas. And then we'll also do an exercise which was revolutionary to me. It's called a sort of time versus passion exercise. So I'll give you a very quick story on that. So I was doing that. So the first time I actually paid for a coach several years back, that was one of the first tasks she gave me to do, was to actually just plot on this graph, this piece of A4 paper, what all the different things I was doing, and I need to plot them in a position of how passionate I was about them and how much time I was spending with them. There were 20 things I was doing, which is just ridiculous. You can't do that many things and do them well to a high enough standard. And so through that, getting a clear vision, I then focused and I got rid of a lot of things. Surprise, surprise, literally the next year, I had my most successful year financially, and also in terms of what I'm, being fulfilled in what I was doing. Yes. So I know this works.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
So we'll go through things like that. So you'll come out with your own time versus passion sheet, as well as the clarity wheel.
So I'm kind of thinking that the people that would benefit most from this are the people that never feel that they've got any time to themselves, that are kind of a bit stressed about how much they've got to get through in their business. Yeah. And I would imagine that they would get a lot of support and validation for being able to put healthy boundaries in place. So they might find it much easier after they've been to this workshop of saying no, or saying not now, I can schedule that for later, or actually being more effective around this stuff.
And a key thing is actually, even if they're not ready to make those sort of decisions yet, it's understanding why. Right. So back to will it make the boat go faster? At least you've got a criteria for the decisions you make. So immediately, yes,
it was like me saying, I'm not sure if I'm ready to turn off my phone tonight. Exactly. But when we finish this call, I'm going to reflect on that so that I can get a better awareness into what's going on with that.
Yes. But what with the clarity wheel, what you will end up with at the end of that session is actions, next steps that you can take within the next 24 to 48 hours. So it's important from a coaching point of view that from a motivation.
And they're going to be the right steps for that individual, every individual. Because
so there'll be different steps. Yeah, everyone will have different steps, but what's right for them.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Okay, is there anything else you want to tell us about the Overwhelm to Clarity workshop, Richard? Because I think we're going to wrap up shortly.
Not really. No, I think I've covered most things there.
Cool.
Just come along.
Come along. We should do one maybe in 3 or 4 months' time online, because I know there are people that were interested in this webinar tonight that weren't able to join and listen to us live. One of which is Natalie, who's down under in Australia. So it's 4 a.m. for her at the moment. So we might be able to arrange an online Overwhelm to Clarity workshop at some point. I think that'll be really valuable.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, I will see you. Well, I'll be talking to you via email, I'm sure, between now
Yeah.
and Wednesday. But I will see you at the event next Wednesday. And for everybody watching, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
And good more evening, because it might be evening, it might be morning. Who knows? Good more evening.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. So the Overwhelm to Clarity workshop on the 12th of September is live on Eventbrite. So if you search for Overwhelm to Clarity St Albans, you'll find it on Eventbrite, and that's where you can book. The early bird tickets are about to end soon, so if you want to book, book sooner rather than later to save some money.